Hey guys, welcome. My name's Sim UK. If you don't know me, I make honest fact-based reviews on YouTube, and I made a review which was very positive of SnowRunner, but since then I've discovered their wheel support is absolutely abysmal. I've been keeping track on the updates and patches as they release, and the most latest one is version 4.10. You can see here that there's a number of fixes and repairs. This is just for PC players, by the way. If you're on console, I'm sorry I can't help you very much, but if you're on PC, then definitely this is the video that will get your G29 working. Now, one of the things that's really frustrated me about this company is they've put out this poll where they find out what the most used wheels are, and clearly by a mile G29 G920 are the highest rated. Now, hardly anybody knows about this poll, to be honest with you. There's 3,000 people who have bought this game and don't have decent wheel support. 3,000 people who know about this poll. You can probably times that by 5-10 times, who knows. So I've been keeping up to track with SnowRunner mods and improvements and patches and enhancements. Patch 5.0 is now open. You can test that patch. That allows you to go in and try out the patch before they release it fully. That's really good. That's actually a positive mood, and I'm quite positive that they've done that. Still remains to be seen whether or not their priority is where it should be for PC players, because 99% of people who play on PC will want to use a wheel. That's why we buy wheels for our PCs. We don't want to use a controller, and whilst this game probably works perfectly well with a controller, that's not what we bought it for. That's not what we want to do with it. So that's what this video is all about. If that doesn't apply to you, just go away. You're wasting your time and my time by being here if you're not interested in using a wheel on SnowRunner. So, wheel support. The most popular wheels, including G29, G27, G920, should be working now. They've put a link to this guy called Tigron, who's got 9 subscribers but 7.5, well, nearly 8,000 views on this video. I urge you not to follow any of the advice he places in this video. He's got you hacking G-Hub to make it work, because apparently G-Hub doesn't support wheels. None of that's true. I'm not being critical of the guy to be mean or overshadow him or anything like that. He's trying to help people the same as I am, so for that I respect him completely. It's just that the advice he's giving is bad and misguided. Please don't follow his advice. Just listen to the advice I'm going to give you in this game. I respect him entirely. If you listen to the end of his video, he does explain that SnowRunner is full of bugs, and he is at least honest about the situation.
Runner with your Logitech G29 steering wheel. Unfortunately, the game is still fresh. It has a lot of bugs. Hopefully developers will fix them soon.
If you're using a G27, I don't know if I can help you with that, because G27 and G-Hub probably don't play very nicely together. There are many other bugs that this game is full of bugs. Honestly, my review was very positive, but that was before I realised how buggy and unstable and unfinished this game was. So sadly, in SnowRunner, the wheel support just doesn't exist, and they can blame it on coronavirus as much as they like. It isn't true. The fact of the matter is, some important keybind options are not available in the steering wheel keybind area. They just simply don't exist, like starting and stopping the engine, for example. Pulling in the winch isn't in there. There are so many things missing in there that it's ridiculous. But if you have a G29 and you've got G-Hub installed, then I can guide you and explain to you how to have a really decent, I'm talking about 90% working G29 setup with, and it probably works for the G920 as well. But yeah, G27, G25, I don't know if I can help you or not. Try it. If it works, let me know in the comments. That'd be great. G29 setup. Now, there's a default steering wheel setup, which is appalling. You can use that if you want. God knows why you would want to use it. It's shite, to be honest with you. None of the gear shifter is bound to anything. None of that works. You're going to have to be creative. Let's say that if you want to be able to use your G29 with SnowRunner, and that's what I'm trying to show you here. So the first thing I'm going to tell you, because I know a lot of people will bugger off before the end of the video, the first thing I'm going to tell you is, when you close the game down and go back into it, all of your configurations will not work anymore. It's very easy to fix. Go into settings, go to steering wheel settings, you see it's on custom, swap it to G29, swap it back to custom, close it down, go back into the game, and everything works again. It's just shit, isn't it? The whole configuration for the wheel support is just shit and shocking. They are They should be so embarrassed. They need to officially release an apology for this, because it's disgusting. I've paid my money, they've got my money, and I can't play the game, and that is unacceptable. Now, this is what you're going to need to do. In G29, I've got my sensitivity set to 100, my operating range set to 900, and my spring centering strength set to 50. Now, one thing you need to do is make sure that you've created a profile, and every time you go back into G29, you'll need to set that up again. One of the things I tried to do was get the camera movement bound to something on my wheel so that I didn't have to use my mouse to look around. I tried binding it to the D-pad, but unfortunately all it does is rotate uncontrollably. So that simply doesn't work, and there's no way of making that work. Previously I was able to bind a Cytec side panel alongside my G29, so that's two different controllers working together. That used to work until update 4.6. And that worked really well. That meant I didn't need to use my mouse at all. But no, they've taken away that functionality because obviously they don't know what they're doing, and they're guessing at fixing these bugs. I don't know who they've got working on this, but they really ought to fire them. That's my opinion. So in this attempt, I tried to get camera zoom bound to button 19. Now you see there's only one button for camera zoom. There's not zoom in and zoom out. There's just camera zoom, which makes no sense, right? Sounds like it should be bound to an axis. And all that happens is it's permanently zooming me in, and by pressing the button I can zoom out, and that's it. I mean, that's not the worst functionality in the world, as long as you're quite happy being zoomed in all of the time. I did go back into the settings and try and reverse it. I put it onto a different button, so if we go into steering wheel here and go to camera zoom, so this is on the minus button on the G29 now, and if I go back in you can see it's exactly the same. There's no way of reversing it. Now, another glaring omission to the wheel support in SnowRunner is the fact that once you have bound a button to something, if you don't like it, you're tough, you're stuck with it. There is no way to remove that. Now, I did fall into a little trap that I fell into ages ago, and I fell into it again here. Down in the bottom right hand corner you can see it says restore default. Now, like an idiot, I thought that meant just for that keybind, but no, what it does is completely reset every single button on your G29, so please don't be tricked into doing that. But that being said, you might want to do that to follow this tutorial all the way through, so that I can guide you and tell you every single keybind that you need. So we have completely emptied it, nothing is bound to anything, and that's perfect. Now please understand that some of the keybinds are bound in G-Hub only, so the buttons no longer work as buttons. They are instead bound to become keybinds on the keyboard. So for example, the key F is bound to my shift up, my right hand shift up paddle, and that works brilliantly. But you'll see all this in a minute. I will show you it all as we go through. So setting up from the beginning, simply click on it and turn your steering wheel. Next one down is the throttle pedal. Click on it, hit the pedal, try not to hit the wrong pedal. Brake, clutch. Clutch is absolutely pointless in this game. You don't need it at all. It makes no difference whatsoever to anything. You could bind it to something else if you wanted. Handbrake I bind to triangle. Quick winch is my right paddle button, but as I say, I have bound the right paddle button to be the F key. So it currently no longer does anything. So I'm clicking the right shifter, but SnowRunner is not registering it as an input off the G29. So I have deliberately taken that control away. But basically it's because quick winch will allow you to connect but not allow you to pull the winch in. Whereas if you bind it to F, it will quick winch and allow you to pull it in. It's so much better. Okay, so moving on. So the all-wheel drive I have bound to my R3 button, and diff lock I have bound to my R2 button, just working straight off the G29. There's no point in having honk, I don't think, really. The only time you ever see anybody is when you're in multiplayer, but then you should have voice comms set up, I would have thought, in most cases anyway. You could actually bind that to your left downshift paddle, because I discovered while setting this up that cancel in the menu is also release the winch. So I had previously bound my left paddle to be R button, which releases the winch, but actually it's now bound to the circle button on my wheel, which means that I can connect and release very easily with just one hand. Now if you've got the wheel turning at different angles, etc., that might not work so well, and maybe you want to keep it on left shift, but that's entirely up to you. Headlights I have bound to my left 3 button, and functions I have bound to my main PlayStation looking button at the very bottom, the big square one. Now the way that I've got everything set up in my G29, it allows me to open up the menu system, scroll down between the options and select something very easily, so that's working really well actually. Navigation map, now I've got a little bit of an issue with this. If you use the keyboard, you press M, it opens the map, you press M a second time and it will close the map. But here, if you bind the navigation map to a button, it will open the map, but it won't close the map. So the best way to sort that out, or the easiest way to sort that out in this abomination of a game, is to bind it in G-Hub. So G-Hub now, my middle select button at the bottom of the trio of buttons that are there is now bound to button M, and that allows me to open and close the map at will using the same button. And it's a hell of a, it's such a huge improvement. It's such a small thing, but it just makes life so much easier. It really does. Pause menu, you can bind that. Normally I bind that to the top of the trio, but to be honest with you, I don't use it that much, and I've decided instead to bind that to the C key on my keyboard, and that allows me to pull up to a garage, press that button and go straight into the garage without having to lean forward and press C on the keyboard, because like in so many other areas there doesn't seem to be a keybind attributed to that, so it's a bit frustrating. Again, player's profile, not particularly bothered, don't use that very often. I tried the camera rotation X and Y on the D-pad, it doesn't work, so I recommend you avoid that. Camera zoom, I've already showed you, doesn't work particularly well either. Now keybinds for the shifter, you're going to have to be creative with this, because there shouldn't be a keybind for neutral. It's just so stupid that that is an option. It just shows their ignorance and neglect towards wheel support. That's all that does. But I have got neutral in gear 6, I have auto in gear 5, I have reverse as gear reverse, I have high gear as gear 3, I have low gear as gear 4, so high and low on 3 and 4. So high gear is gear 3, low gear is gear 4, low plus is gear 1, and low minus is gear 2. Now obviously cranes, I've used every button that I have on my G29, so having these extra buttons here for the crane controls is just a joke, because there is nothing I can bind it to, and there's nothing on a G29 that really would work very well as a crane winch control anyway. This is another example of the emissions in the controller support right now. We really need to be able to have multiple controllers set up so that we can manipulate the crane using a Cytec side panel, for example. Even an Xbox 360 controller or something similar would be absolutely fine, but it's just not in the game. They haven't made it available, and it's incredibly frustrating. So we'll just ignore that completely and move on to the wheel UI, which is quite important. This is the area that pops up, allows you to connect to trailers, allows you to switch vehicles, all that kind of very important good stuff. It also allows you to do more complex winch attachments, which unfortunately you're going to have to keep your mouse to do. So up is up, down is down, left is left, right is right on the D-pad. Accept is the X button, decline is the circle button, and the UI left and the UI right I have actually bound to the plus key and the minus key on my G29. I don't think I'm going to use it very much because as you'll see in my example, you can't move around the map without the mouse. You can't move around the garage particularly well without the mouse. So I mean, it's very poorly implemented anyway. So really having that option is pretty much a waste of space, if I'm being honest. So I was contemplating whether or not to use minimap camera movement up and down on the D-pad here, but obviously by doing that I would have removed the ability to manipulate the menu that comes up that allows you to switch vehicles, attach trailers and stuff. So basically you can't have both. You can't have, which again is another omission to the ability of their design team. The fact that you're in the map means that you don't need to be able to control that driver menu. So you should be able to double bind the D-pad up and down, left and right, to do both things, because you're never ever going to be in both screens at the same time. But clearly they have put very little time or effort into wheel support. So I'm going to move the camera here and show you how the winch works. So to winch to that little log over there, you just press the right gear up trigger. Get myself in 4-wheel drive, and you press and hold it and that will pull it in, and then you can press the left one winch to remove it, to drop the winch, or you can press the circle button. Now in order to do, and I'm doing all of this on the wheel, I'm not using the mouse, unless you see the mouse moving, I'm not using the mouse at all. So you would press the driver menu, which is this. The D-pad up and down can be used to change truck, stop engine, attach trailer, etc. If you want to use any of the other winch points, you're going to have to use the mouse. That's the only way to do it, which is a bit of a shame. That should really be bound into the keybind so you can do it with D-pad, but there you go. So if you've got it bound, if you use an extended winch, you can still use L1 paddle or circle to drop that winch. And I'll show you here, if you connect it and hold the R1 gear up paddle, it should still draw it in. So everything works very smoothly, and everything is pretty logical where it's placed, far better than the default, which is disgraceful. I can't think of a better word for it than disgraceful. So you can see the winch works, the menu works, everything works perfectly well. If we go back into the steering settings, and what am I looking for here? The decline button 2, that's bound to circle. And I'm just highlighting here that pressing circle or pressing L1, which is currently bound in G-Hub to be the button R, does the same thing. So it's that easy to connect and disconnect. It's far better set up like this. Now I'm pressing shift on the pedals to engage the shifter, but you don't need to. You can just change gears without shift. So I mean, at the moment that's a completely pointless thing. You don't need it at all. If you wanted to, you could bind shift to be your quick pull winch if that's what you wanted to do. It makes no difference whatsoever. So we'll have a little drive around, and we'll do some hard quartering, and I've got to say it feels a lot better now that I've got the configuration set up to be 100%. Now sadly there's no attached trailer option. If there was an attached trailer keybind in here, then you wouldn't need to go to the menu at all in order to attach a trailer. You could just reverse up to it and attach a trailer, and in all honesty that's how it should be. Again, a glaring omission to the wheel support options that are in this game. So another thing that's missing is the option to start and stop the engine. Now, there aren't many occasions where you actually need to do that, but if you wanted to for any particular reason, you would need to press the B key on the keyboard. There is no keybind option within the G29 wheel support. All you do in G-Hub is bind that key to the button B on your keyboard, and it will work. And it works really well. It just means that you hardly need to touch your keyboard for anything. Obviously you still need to use your mouse in order to look around, but you barely need to touch the keyboard for anything if you use the keybinds that I've created here. So to get into the garage you need to press the C key, and I've bound that to something on my G29. Sadly when you're in there you can't move up or down the menus because it's a different menu, and therefore the keybinds on the D-pad no longer work, which is ridiculous. Because I've bound plus and minus between the shifters at the top, you can move left and right, and if you press X it will allow you to go in, and if you press circle it allows you to come out. But you can't move up and down, so you can't leave the garage, you can't select a unit. There's nothing you can do on the key without using the keyboard and the mouse. It's pretty disappointing, to be honest. So that's proper wheel support. That will give you the best possible experience on a G29 G920 right now, as long as you're using G-Hub. Without G-Hub you wouldn't be able to do any of this at all. It just wouldn't be possible. So just to finally let off, you may have seen that SnowRunner have released an accolades trailer promoting all these wonderful, highly respected and trusted YouTubers who have reviewed the game and given them incredibly positive feedback. Now, I have to say, I gave the game like 88% out of 100 because I think it's a fantastic game. But the attitude of Focus is disgraceful and disgusting, and I'm making a video right now to really highlight exactly why they should be ashamed of themselves. So keep your eyes open for that, because you're going to be surprised at some of the things I can show you about this company. You will definitely look at them in a different light, I'm sure of it. Anyway, I hope this helps you out. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please hit the like button if you liked it. Thanks for watching. Take care. Goodbye for now.